Good morning, members of council and the public, and some people that have joined us here in council chambers live and in person. We're ready to start. So welcome to the council meeting for Wednesday, June the 18th. First order of business is call to order, and please stand for our national anthem. Thank you. So the next item on the agenda is public forum. I don't think we have anybody signed up for that, Mr. Clerk. Okay. Next item is council announcements. Councillor Shepherd.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that June is a month of many different celebrations. It's Seniors Month, for which we had a wonderful barbecue kickoff event at Mill Pond Park, and many thanks to the staff and volunteers who organized this amazing event. It's also the start of Portuguese, Italian, and Filipino Heritage Months, National Indigenous History Month, and Pride Month. There are many different celebrations taking across York region for all of these events, and I just wanted to invite residents to join in all of these fun activities, and congratulations to everyone that's celebrating. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. It certainly is a busy schedule in the month of June. Anybody else? Okay, seeing none. I'm sorry, Councillor Liu.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm excited to announce that the Ward 3 Community Barbecue is back. It will be held on next Friday, June 17th. So come enjoy free barbecue, live music, kids activities, entertaining performances. We have lucky draw, and bring your dog. And featuring this year, I have a lure course for dogs to run around and enjoy. So I hope to see every one of you. I'll send out invitation later this week, and it's June 17th at Richmond Green. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I don't have a dog, but maybe I could rent one just for the event. So thank you very much. I'll be there. Okay, thank you. Anybody else for announcements? Okay, seeing none, I just wanted to acknowledge on behalf of council, we had our provincial election recently, and I would like to welcome back MPP Michael Parsa and MPP Daisy Y to represent our community. Our community has spoken, and those two members of provincial parliament have been re-elected for another term. So welcome back, and our congratulations to those two individuals. Okay, the next item on the agenda is introduction of emergency or time-sensitive matters. Seeing none, Mr. Clerk. Fifth item on the agenda is adoption of the agenda. I need a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Chan, Councillor DePaulo. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries unanimously. Next item is disclosures of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof. Regional Local Councillor Pirelli.
Microphone tried to get away from me. Yeah, I believe it's a member motion, item 14.4 by Councillor Barros with respect to Regional Local Councillor Pirelli's Enviro Day exemption from the events policy.
Okay, thank you. Any other members of council?
I sought legal advice from the Integrity Commissioner. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Clerk, that's noted. Okay, adoption of previous council minutes. We've got a council public meeting on May the 18th, special council meeting on May 24th, and council meeting on May 25th. I need a mover and seconder. Regional Local Councillor DePaulo, Councillor Shepherd. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries unanimously. So item number 8, identifications of item requiring separate discussion. Regional Councillor DePaulo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to pull item 13.1.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, seeing none. So that being the case, we could adopt, let's see, we've already adopted the council minutes. 13.2 could be adopted, 13.3 could be adopted, 13.5 could be adopted, 13.6, 13.7, 13.8, 13.9, 13.10, 13.11. And the bylaws, oh, sorry, yeah, I guess can they be adopted?
If I might, Mr. Mayor, and actually, I would hold the bylaws just out of an abundance of caution. 13.4 can also go on consent, assuming that council understands it's with the slightly revised recommendation in the revised agenda. That can go on consent, as well as the correspondence, the additions, items 13.12, 13.13, 13.14, and 13.15.
Okay. Councillor Munch.
Actually, just for clarification, 13.6, please.
You want to pull 13.6?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So 13.6 will hold that. Anybody else? Okay, seeing none, I need a motion to adopt those on consent. Don't all jump at once. Okay, Councillor Shepherd, Councillor Munch. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, that carries. Thank you very much. All right, so we have no public hearings. We don't have any presentations today, so we can move right into delegations. Our first delegation is Sarah Jamil from Compassionate York Region regarding the member motion submitted by Councillor Shepherd with respect to Compassionate Richmond Hill. Welcome, Ms. Jamil.
Thank you. Honorable Mayor and respected councillors, peace be upon you all. I want to thank you for this opportunity to speak to you to the motion 14.5 put forward by Councillor Shepherd. My name is Sarah Jamil. I'm a new Canadian citizen, and I've lived in Oak Ridges for the past 16 years with my husband and 3 children. Denmark is where I was born and where I got my education as a teacher. Pakistan is my cultural heritage, and the Ahmadiyya Muslim community is the faith of my choice. I strongly believe in the transformative power of compassion. And today I come as a representation from the Charter for Compassion International. The Charter for Compassion is not only a document, but a dynamic and global movement. It serves as an antidote to the misery, hatred, and anger we're experiencing in the world today. The Charter for Compassion urges us to compassionate action at every level of society, including in politics. We're present in 54 countries, and we have close to 3,000 partners in our 12 sectors. Did you know Australia has declared itself the first compassionate continent and California the first compassionate state? Moreover, over 100 compassionate cities and communities the world over have joined us in the commitment to create a better, just, and equitable economy and world. Now, this important work is also happening here in Canada. I and a group of women co-founded Compassionate York Region in the fall of last year. We decided it was time to shift the narrative from COVID to compassion. Our mission is to weave compassion into the social fabric of every sector in our entire region. I'm happy to say that we are gaining momentum, one courageous conversation at a time. And I can share with you that recently the Canadian Mental Health Association of York Region awarded us a quick action grant to have the first Happy to Chat bench installed here in Richmond Hill in Rumble Pond Park. Thanks to Councillor Shepherd for the support in that as well. So why are we talking about the city declaring itself a compassionate city? I'd like to explain to you what it means. In a compassionate community or city, the needs of all the inhabitants of that community are recognized and met. The well-being of the entire community is a priority, and all people and living things are treated with respect. More simply, in a compassionate community, people are motivated by compassion to take responsibility for and care for each other. A community where compassion is fully alive is a thriving, resilient community whose members are moved by empathy to take compassionate action. They're able to confront crises with innovative solutions. They're confident in navigating changes in the economy and the environment, and are resilient enough to bounce back readily from natural and man-made disasters. So let us envision for a moment Richmond Hill as a city where compassion is the guiding principles for its governance, for upholding civil discourse, and in how we do business. I ask you, wouldn't that be good for our image? And it would surely put us on the map as a force for good. A public endorsement by the city is a crucial step in making this a sustainable one. I believe the city's affirming the Charter for Compassion is in direct alignment with its values of collaboration, care, courage, and service. I thank you sincerely, Councillor Shepherd, on behalf of Charter for Compassion and Compassionate York Region for bringing this motion to Council. And I thank Council for giving it serious consideration. We're very excited about this possibility. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jamil. So we have no other delegations on that particular item. So at this time, I'll bring it over to Councillor Shepherd, who moved this. This is a member motion, item 14.5. So Councillor Shepherd.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to Sarah Jamil, our delegate, for your meaningful presentation and for all the important work that you do with Compassionate York Region to spread the message of compassion to everyone here in Richmond Hill. My first invitation as a councillor was by the lovely Ms. Marge Andre, who invited me to the Golden Day Rule ceremony at the Peace Bowl at our local library on April 5th. There, I was lucky enough to meet with a lovely group of like-minded Richmond Hill residents who had made it their mission to spread kindness and compassion throughout our city and further. Since its inception in 2009 by a wonderful lady named Karen Armstrong, the Charter has been affirmed in more than 54 designated countries around the world as part of the Charter's community initiatives, and they are at all various stages of development. More than 121 initiatives have signed the Charter for Compassion, meaning that their local government has affirmed the Charter. Actually, we have 2 here in British Columbia that have signed on to the Charter. It's important to note that spreading the message of compassion and creating a compassionate community starts at home, or in this case, at City Hall. I regret to say that this municipality has sometimes deviated from this path, and that many people in this organization have faced some type of bullying, intimidation, or harassment, oftentimes only for having differing opinions. In November 2020, this council approved 4 strategic priorities, a sense of belonging being one of them, wherein council identified the creation of a diversity, equity, and inclusion initiative as one of the many ways to implement this priority. For the sake of clarity and the wording of my motion, we will use the key definitions put forth in the staff report presented in October 17, 2021. Diversity is about the individual. It is about the variety of unique dimensions, qualities, and characteristics we all possess. Equity is the fair treatment, access, opportunity, and advancement for all people, while at the same time striving to identify and eliminate barriers that have prevented the full participation of some groups. Inclusion is about the collective. It is about creating a culture that strives for equity and embraces, respects, accepts, and values differences. Diversity and inclusion is about capturing the uniqueness of the individual, creating an environment that values and respects individuals for their talents, skills, abilities to benefit the collective. It is important to note that there is funding in the 2022 operating budget for the implementation of the city's DEI strategy, and that the city is already conducting internal surveys on the best methods for the implementation of said strategies. The message and spirit of this motion is to foster a compassionate community where we celebrate our diversity and yet come together as parts of the same whole, which in my opinion is exactly what Richmond Hill is. It is home to many different communities and cultures that live together in peace and harmony as members of one beautiful city. Therefore, it is my humble belief that pledging to make Richmond Hill the first compassionate municipality in Eastern Canada is an excellent way to show council commitment to its own strategic priorities and to creating a harmonious Richmond Hill. And I believe that with the leadership of our great mayor and the cooperation of this council, we can build a compassionate Richmond Hill. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. So I'm looking for a seconder, Councillor Silovitz, and then we've got a couple of other people on the list as well. So Councillor Silovitz, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. I had trouble logging on this morning. My apologies, but I'm here. I fully support this and second this motion. I want to thank Councillor Shepherd for bringing this forward. I have been introduced to Compassionate York Region through Marge Andre and Sarah Jamil. Peace be upon you and your family. I haven't been able to attend any of the public meetings because, as you all know, I'm not attending any public meetings yet. But I am fully engaged and fully involved in this movement. There's not much else I can add to what Councillor Shepherd so eloquently said. I urge my council colleagues to please approve this. We are a compassionate society. We are a compassionate municipality. We are a compassionate people. And we show that every day as we live in one of the most diverse municipalities in the whole of Canada. And it would be an honor for Richmond Hill to be the first one to sign on to this and show our true colors. Compassion for all, compassion for one. It means the same thing. This is about inclusivity and tolerance and embracing all of those who are not quite like yourself, but still make up the human family. So thank you again to Councillor Shepherd and to our residents who have so passionately advocated for this. This is about an affirmation of a spirit and state of mind, and I fully support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Next on the list is Councillor Chan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Shepherd, for moving this motion, and particular thank you to Sarah Jamel, who came in to the delegation. To me, this is truly the time to recognize not just the diversity, but thinking about that June, Councillor Shepherd mentioned about, celebrating a number of diverse cultures. Councillor Silver is talking about different colors, showing our colors. June is also Pride Month. June 8th, 2 days ago, it's just the anniversary of the tragic incident of showing total intolerance, Islamophobia in London. Of course, I hope it never happened anywhere. So compassion is, in my view, is a core Canadian value. There's no reason not to support as a core value. Now, we face that word many times during our daily, as a daily vocabulary. So I do a bit of research behind what is compassion. Compassion may mean different things to different people. And I come across, and this is how compassion can transform our politics, economy, and society. Because just that declaring compassion, declaring respect for others is good. It's a good start. I believe Mr. Jamil talked about this as a first step, but it has to be something more. And I'm not going to recite everything that I found out, but I find out really intriguing to me and speaking to me is that maybe just one sentence I want to share with you from this particular book I was mentioning, or article. At the heart of compassion is the courage is the word, to look into, I gather this is yourself, in particular, not necessarily just all the sunny side. I'm not talking about the weather, but the dark side within us. And from that would outgrow that really sense of understanding for people who might be looking not like us, who maybe practice faith not like us. I think this is really bringing out the core of the whole spirit. So I am fully behind the particular idea, value of compassion. In fact, as I said earlier, I honestly believe this is one of our core Canadian value. I'm happy to support it and have City of Richmond Hill not only being the first city to declare that as a compassion city, I think that's the right term, not only York Region, I believe it might be even Ontario. And it was mentioned about a couple of cities in British Columbia already have done that. And I think that would also complement that York Region, as well as the City of Richmond, is already a member of the character community, which one of 11 attributes is actual compassion. Because I did raise that question with Councillor Shepherd. We are already a character community. So I think it will complement that, as well as not too long ago, the city also, we affirm and sign on to the CIM, which meaning Coalition of Inclusive Municipalities. And for years, I've been really advocating for the respect for diversity. So this is certainly aligned with what I believe in, my personal value. And I think, as I mentioned, the Canadian value for a city of like Richmond Hill, which mentioned many times, of diversity. And we see more and more of it based on the 2021 census. So it's time that we have, in the month of June, in recognition of a number of diversity, the month that is also a month of seniors, although it's not necessarily to do with this concept or idea, but nonetheless, being compassionate to people at all ages. And I think that's important. I'm happy to support it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, Councillor Shepherd, for bringing this forward. And thanks for the delegate.
Thanks very much, Councillor Chan. Councillor DePaulo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also strongly support this initiative, and I want to thank Councillor Shepherd for bringing it forward in her short time here. She's done a lot of work on bringing forward this initiative, which essentially is one step toward becoming a compassionate community, or the first officially declared compassionate community in Ontario. I think it's fantastic that we are going to be leaders in this area, as we are in financial planning and environmental stewardship and all of the other ways. I also am grateful that it dovetails with our diversity, equity, and inclusion program under your leadership, Mr. Mayor, that is extremely sensitive to the needs of our entire community, and the fact that we are truly one of the most diverse communities in all of Canada. And I'm proud to support this motion. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Barros.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. My question is to the mover of the motion. I do want to thank the delegate for speaking today. Thank you so much. But the question is, Richmond Hill has a long history of being a character community. This isn't new to us. We've belonged to Character York Region. We have held events on an ongoing basis. We have a committee here at the city of city staff that work with staff and council and members of the public on character. The character community also interrogates with the York Region District School Board and the Catholic School Board. My question is to the mover, how does this initiative differ from the character community? And is your thought that we say goodbye to the character community and we initiate this new one, or do they dovetail together? I'm just a little bit confused. You could please explain.
Councillor Shepherd.
Sure, for you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for asking the question, Councillor Barros. No, to be honest with you, as we mentioned, we're very proud of the DEI initiative that the city is undertaking. This is just one step to formalize our commitment and to work together towards the implementation of those strategies that the city already has underway. Even though these priorities were sort of decided on in November 2020, we are still only in the surveying stages of implementation. Some of the things that we've done is, yes, we did sign to the York Region Inclusion Charter in September 2018 to celebrate our growing and diverse population. Staff participate in a variety of diversity and inclusion groups. We do provide services in multiple languages here in Richmond Hill to our different residents. There are a lot of things that we have done as part of the DEI initiative, but there's so much more that we can do. And I think declaring us to be a compassionate municipality is the first step, perhaps in us treating each other better as colleagues, and then treating the staff better and working together towards, the greater good of the Richmond Hill residents. Thank you.
Thank you.
As a follow-up then to the mover, would you say the character community has failed, given that you have to now implement this to reach the end of what you just spoke about?
No, not at all. I think that we can strengthen the steps that we've taken. This is not about putting down the steps that we have taken before. This is about strengthening the path that we want to take forward. This is about collaboration. This is about coming together. This is about celebration of a lot more than what we've done to date. So this has nothing to do with the failure of our past, not at all. I think we've done amazing work in Richmond Hill. I think we could do a lot more. That's all.
So, Mr. Mayor, and my colleagues, I have nothing against this particular organization or structure. I guess my only question is, as a council, where do we end? Do we take every initiative that comes our way and adopt it to the point that eventually we may have 15 or 20 of them that we've signed up to? Or do we stick with the current character community, which is York region wide, our school board wide, so the verbiage and the language is consistent with what the community is hearing? We have it on our trucks and our vehicles, the character community logo. So I'm not questioning this initiative. Please don't get me wrong. I'm questioning, where do we land as a council? Do we all start as we meet and greet other people in the community and they belong to something similar but different? Should we sign them all as part of being inclusive and then eventually just completely flood the message and not really know which one we're actually speaking from? I ask that as a question, not so much as I'm not raising an amendment or anything like that. I want to be sure that in the long term, we're clear on the messaging that we're giving and that we're not putting one program over the other. So I don't know if we've thought that out. Perhaps we should be parking this for a period or two just to kind of take a look at it. How does it work with the character community? Or do we say, you know what, the character community has served us well, but it's time to park it and pick this new one, which can now be something we all rally around? Otherwise, I mean, unfortunately, Councillor, you haven't been here to understand the depth of the character community. Every year we give out character community T-shirts to our staff. At what point in time are we getting 5 or 6 different T-shirts for our staff so that they can be representative of all the different types of initiatives that we're running? So it's more a logistics question than it is an actual nuts and bolts of what the messaging of each group says. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Munch.
Good day too. I appreciate the mover's motion on the intent, but I think on the other side of it, it shows why are you moving this motion? Further to the Ward 1 councillor's comments, if we are already doing initiatives now, and we already are a character community, the fact that in the overture saying that we have not done that during the presentation of the motion, that is alarming to me because I believe we are a character community. I think we're doing a really good job, and I think that we are making our very, very best. And that the fact that we've always moved motions and articulated bullying, that we're moving a pink shirt day and we engage with other organizations that have made a mention. This motion actually makes a point to say that we're not doing this. And your overture saying that we are bullying and that we haven't done that. Can you please give me specifically why you moved this motion? I know you said you were brought to your first action was to be part of a community, which was fantastic. And I appreciate them doing that. And I appreciate the delegation today. However, specifically to move this motion as your first motion to come forward to say that we are not being focused on the diversity of our community and that we have been bullying is alarming to me. I'd like to know specifically why you feel like this is a first priority you should be doing.
Councillor Shepherd.
For you, Mr. Chair. So thank you, Councillor Munch, for asking that question. The goal of the Richmond Hill Character Community Initiative is to encourage organizations to have respect, honesty, integrity, compassion towards one another. I personally have faced on this council, whether on or off chambers, behaviors that do not comply with those. So my reason, my motivation for moving this motion is to highlight the fact that even though we are part of the Richmond Hill Character Community Initiative, we as council members fail to comply to that initiative and what we are supposed to adhere to. So in the spirit of reminding all of us and strengthening our commitment to inclusivity and compassion, I brought this motion forward. And you can choose to have a differing opinion on this, but that's where I stand with the situation. Thank you.
Having said that, then I would like to move a referral motion on this to say that if there's a councillor has demonstrated today, communicate that in her short tenure that we at council and has experienced that concern, and it has been a priority as her first motion with regards to this and is trying to raise the awareness to the community that we have an issue and have not been culturally sensitive and what have you, I would suggest that we move a motion, a referral motion back to staff to figure out how we have not done as per the member's motion and how our communication is saying that we have not met our obligations. We are very, very focused here on doing things. We had a really great day yesterday where we had staff come together, and I appreciate staff doing that. Although it wasn't mentioned in the announcements, I think it was clear that we as council, at least from my perspective, we at council and others actually want to be inclusive and actually want to be open and transparent and want to be engaging and have discussions, sometimes heated, not. So the fact that you have to move this motion is the first time, now that you're saying that you've been experienced this, I suggest move referral back to staff to find out how we are doing our cultural sensitivity in all of our programs to making sure that we have a collaborative approach on everything that we do, as opposed to if there's one area that we're not doing or areas we are doing, that a member of council has to move a motion to say to the city and to the people that we have not been culturally sensitive. We have not been showing, we've had some bully tactics. That is very, very alarming when we as a council member have to move a motion to this extent. Fully supportive of what the spirit is But as was said earlier, we have been doing this as a member of council. We are a fully diverse community that's growing, as per one of the members of council saying with regards to the census. I thank him for that. So I'd like to move a referral motion back to staff to come back with, when they see fit. I'd like to ask staff how long would they need to come back to give us some feedback as to why or what we can do to be better in order to meet this motion. That seems to be a priority for the councillor because she's feeling bullied and intent that she had to move a motion that had to be addressed to this municipality.
Do you have wording for that?
I'm asking staff what time frame, through the chair, who can, help me to find out a timing as to what's the best time is for the referral motion to come back.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I would suggest that if council supports a referral, that we could perhaps report back in the fall, in the September meeting.
Okay, so fair enough. So I'd like to, yes, please. Through the chair.
Thank you, and I appreciate the interim city managers on the timing. The motion refer, I do sort of need what exactly is staff reporting back on so that that can be included in the
Yeah,
motion.
thank you. So I'd like to have staff go back to look at all of our cultural diversity, to look at all the programs that we're doing, to make sure that the spirit of the motion that was put forward by the Ward 4 councillor is inclusive and collectively working within our strategic plans and our communication plans. And I'd ask for a recorded vote on that, please. Make sure that all comments that were made today are referred back to staff in the motion. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion on the, or a motion to refer, I guess, on the floor. Yeah, I'm getting there. Thank you, though. Anybody would like to second that? Okay, I'm not seeing anybody.
Mr. Chairman, I'll be happy to second that.
Okay, would you like to speak to it?
I would.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Councillor Munch, for making this referral motion back to staff. In the spirit of, I understand the spirit of this motion, and I fully support the spirit of the motion. Any organization that fosters compassion is an organization that we should support. And thank you for the delegate for speaking today. And thank you for the councillor for moving the motion, because it starts a dialogue. But I did read the motion carefully, and I did read the charter for compassion. And this is directed at staff, because I really do want staff to take great consideration when they deal with this over the summer and before the fall, is that we hear the words inclusion. I've heard them mentioned by my colleagues at least a dozen times here. And yet, when I read the motion in the therefore be it resolved, the second paragraph, it says, and the city of Richmond Hill hereby commits to the rejection of any practice that breeds hatred, violence, intolerance, and disdain. Had the statement ended there, I would be very comfortable in supporting that statement. But then the statement goes on, and it says, on basis of one's creed, race, gender, or sexuality, national origin, religion, culture, color, and constitution. And there I have an issue, because that paragraph in itself is not inclusive. We have the Canadian and the Ontario Human Rights Code, and that code deals with what I believe is a very inclusive list of things that people should not be discriminated against. And I cite, just as an example for staff's reference, age, sex, marital status, family status, and disability, which were not included in the resolution. So if we're going to write a document, words matter. And I wouldn't want it to be out in the public that it wasn't, that we didn't include all of these other issues, age, sex, marital status, family status, and disability. Because I'm certain that it was not the intent of the mover of the motion to exclude these people and suggest that it would be okay to breed violence, hatred, intolerance, and disdain against these other groups. So if you're going to mention one, you need to mention them all. That is the foundation of inclusiveness. So I have an issue with that, and that's why I'm glad we've moved a referral motion back to staff, because frankly, I could not have supported the motion as written. It raises too many questions. Then I read the charter itself, and I won't get into great details, and I would ask that staff, for sensitivity reasons, ask the staff reach out to me during their deliberations of this issue, and I would share my comments with them. Because referring comments back to staff, and not just the comments today, it's all comments. But there's been a lot of talk about, it says, we therefore call upon all men and women to restore compassion. And we know now that certain terms are acceptable and other terms are not acceptable, and they raise a lot of questions. So all I'm saying here is that we really need to look at this. And I was pleased to hear the comments from Councillor Barrows, because we don't want to dilute our efforts. Because we support and support something like compassion through our charter, sometimes when we start to add other initiatives, it kind of dilutes the prime message. But most concerning to me was the first statement, followed up by a second statement by the mover, that this motion here may have been sparked by a personal experience on council, by other members of council. And that to me is very concerning. I would suggest to anyone who feels that they have been treated less than respectful, that we have a process here at the City of Richmond Hill. There's many avenues to get help. And I think I encourage everyone, including the mover of this motion, that if they feel that they have been treated less than respectful, they should use the tools that we have at the city in order to bring resolution to that. It could be as simple as a conversation with the person alleged to have committed this bullying act or harassment act. But it needs to be done. Speaking about it. And lastly, my last comment I want to leave with staff.
Your time is up, Councillor, so please wrap it up as quickly as you can.
Thank you. And the last comment I want to make is that, well, I forgot now. I was interrupted. So that happens when you get older. Hold on, give me a second.
Councillor, that you could,
Yeah, it's okay.
I guess there isn't a second round, but
Thank you.
okay. Anybody else on the referral? Okay, seeing none. We have a mover and seconder. All those in, there was a recorded vote called. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, voting on the motion to refer this matter to staff, Councillor Munch.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Chan.
No.
Thank you. Mayor West.
No.
Thank you. Councillor Silovitz.
No.
Thank you. Regional Local Councillor DePaula.
No.
Thank you. Councillor Liu.
No.
Thank you. Councillor Barros.
Yes.
Thank you. Regional Local Councillor Pirelli.
Yes, please.
Thank you. Councillor Shepherd.
No.
Thank you. The motion to refer fails to carry.
Okay, we're back to the main motion. Is there anybody else that would like to speak on the first round? Seeing none. Second round? Am I? Oh, yeah, you're right. Go ahead.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I really hope that, the referral would have passed, but unfortunately it didn't. And so we're faced with what we have here today. Again, without knowing how this would conflict with our character community initiative and the fact that it itself, this motion is not inclusive. I'm sorry. Unless it includes the other issues of age, sex, marital status, family status, disability, and I'm not sure if that's a complete list. We're working off the cuff here, but at a minimum, those should be added if I'm going to consider this motion. I'm not going to move an amendment because I didn't create this motion. If I had brought a motion like this forward, I would have vetted it more properly to make sure that it was inclusive. I cannot support this motion as is. It's not inclusive. It's very divisive, actually, by not including all the other things in the human rights. And it's conflicting. And I don't want people to come to us and say, well, why didn't you include age? Is it okay to be intolerant or hatred towards people and discriminate against them because of age? That would be the suggestion. Words matter, ladies and gentlemen. We will go today through a lot of agenda items, and words will matter. Words get us in trouble. Words start debates. This is problematic right from the outset. And the mover of the motion should have known that this is not an inclusive document. For that reason, I will not support it. And I will support it, like I said, referring it back to staff so that we can work out these details. If the mover really wants this to be part of council's resolution to show that we are a compassionate community, then we need to include everybody, because not including them shows a lack of compassion for everybody. I will not support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else on the first round? Seeing none. I will just make a few comments. A lot's been said up to this point. It's hard to know where to start. I think, you know, I've actually been following this group for quite a while. I've participated in some of their meetings. I've been very impressed, actually. It's a refreshing take on things, and I think that this is a breath of fresh air. The Character Community Initiative is a great one, and it will remain a great one, I'm sure. And we can do more than one thing at a time. I guess, in a municipality, we can juggle two balls. There's no question. And in fact, I would argue that the two of these initiatives are actually very synergistic. Compassion, to me, I've thought about this quite a bit, and compassion to me is the baseline and foundation of so many things that follow from it. Diversity, this motion to me is about compassion and building a compassionate community. But on top of that, other things get built on top. And one of the things that gets built on top is our diversity, equity, inclusion strategy. Words do matter. There's absolutely no question. But I think what this is a baseline to get started to do more work than what we're doing right now. And it sends a message to the community that at this point in time, we believe that compassion is something that we need to concentrate on as a foundational piece. And I think that this motion gets us some of the way there. I mean, the motion itself is not the thing. It's the actions that follow from the motion and the message that we send from the motion. So I'm fully in support of this. There was a comment made about being flooded with different, signing this, signing that, and all that kind of stuff. And I actually understand that. I get across my inbox, and I'm sure everybody does too, a number of initiatives, and most of them are good ones, and charters signing on to documents and so on like this. And I filter them out. I mean, not all of them, but some of them and many of them are maybe not quite the right time for our community. They're maybe not the right initiative. I mean, and all that kind of stuff. But I don't think we're flooded here with charters to sign like this. As I said, I mean, just in terms of the synergistic thing, I know a number of years ago we signed the Mayor's Monarch Pledge. It's very different than this, obviously. And shortly after that, we signed the Bee City Pledge. And frankly, those two pledges are actually very similar. And they work together very nicely. We've made great strides and done great things just because of those two simple things. They didn't cost a lot, but they were a little bit more of a guidance to all of us and all of staff to say this is important to us as a council. So I very much am pleased to see this before us today. I think that we are going to be one of the first communities in Canada to sign it, and I think it probably is a work in progress, but we can customize this type of initiative for what we see in Richmond Hill and what we need most in our own community, and I think that this does allow that to happen. Okay, look at that. I think I've said it all. So that's it for me. I would be happy to support it. I appreciate the conversation that we've had here today, and we'll go from there. So is there anybody else okay, second round, Councillor Munch. Councillor Munch, go ahead.
So as council did not wish to affirm a referral motion, whether amendment or not, the mover has not made the amendment. The motion says, and I'm just going to go through the end, that the City of Richmond Hill hereby affirms the tenets of the Charter of Rights, compassion, and commits to restoring compassion in our society. Therefore, effectively saying that we are not compassionate in our society, and hereby formalizes its commitment. I am absolutely certain that we have that commitment, and I'm surprised that if this passes, this council is saying that we do not have that, because that's specifically what this motion says. The referral motion that was brought forward that council members rejected, to ask staff to make sure that we are looking into the councillor and all comments recommendation are there. I'm very worrisome that if this is accurate, that we feel that we are not compassionate, because I would like to think, at least in a small way, I try to be compassionate, and I would hope that other members are there. So the motion itself, although in spirit might be fantastic, and the delegates, we are totally affirming it, we need to be careful, because there is some hurtful comments that could be made. there is one individual who texted me during this situation who has a mental concern. And I talk to this individual on a fairly regular basis. And we need to be of a much higher authority to be sensitive on the words that are being done, because some people might take this. So I say to the council members, although this may be meant for a particular purpose towards a particular area, I have enormous confidence that we are doing our very utmost best, and that we are sensitive, and that we are compassionate, and that we are committed to the people of this community of all valuations. For those that are against that and feel disagreement of that, I appreciate their comments. I, for one, will say that I have witnessed tremendous compassion from this organization and from our community and from members of the council. But I don't believe that this motion as written, and the fact that our council did not want to refer it back for a wholesome approach on all items, I can't support it for that reason, because I won't be endorsing that type of concept. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Barros.
I just wanted to state for the record, I don't have anything against the organization that's being put in front of us. I just don't know enough about it. In a compassionate setting, I thought they had motioned to give us more time to understand and deal with it would have been something that would be plausible, but apparently not. The members on the other side just want to say, no, what's going to happen today, it's done. So I'll be voting against it, not because I'm against it. I just need to get more information before I can actually be along and be on board with it. There's words in there that I need to understand. I need to understand when it speaks to that this is the path to enlightenment. Is that a religious comment? Is it just a generality? When it speaks to this will create a just economy, are we taking a political, financial perspective on it and how we're going to be running things? I just need to understand better some of the words that we're actually perhaps going to be prescribing to. Well, I'll vote no at this point, but I still have an open mind as to learning more about the organization and what it really means in the whole bit and how it fits into the greater being here at Richmond Hill. Thank you.
Okay, just before Councillor Shepherd, is there anybody else that would like to speak on a second round? I'm just wondering if you could do a wrap up. Okay, so go ahead, Councillor Shepherd, second round.
The only comment, thank you, Mr. Chair, I wanted to make is this motion has been on the agenda for 1 week. At any point of time, any one of my colleagues who had any questions regarding the interpretation of the wording, the intent of the motion, whether it works in harmony with Richmond Hill Character Community Initiative, whether there's anything staff can do in terms of feedback, all of this could have and should have been addressed during the past week. We all talk about how little experience I have on this panel and how much experience you all have. I would think the years of experience would sort of tip you off to having this conversation at some point prior to this public council meeting. That being said, your comments are noted. I hope that we can continue this conversation after the passing of this motion and to create an actual compassionate community. Councillor Munch, I've heard your comments, and all I can say to that is, in my personal experience with you, there's been a lack of compassion very recently. So for you to make these speeches, it's just actually offensive. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Councillor,
Point of order.
go ahead. Point of order, Councillor Munch.
That was a very pointed comment made by the councillor. If that councillor wishes to make that kind of comment publicly, we have a process of doing that, then I would ask the councillor to please follow that process and bring it forward. Thank you.
Okay,
I ask
thank
for a
you.
recorded vote.
A recorded vote, Councillor Pirelli is next.
Wow. I'm shocked, Mr. Chairman, of the comments I just had heard from the mover of the motion. It's not very compassionate. It doesn't, it's an attack on members of council to suggest. Would you please ask the member not to interrupt
Go ahead,
Mr.
Councillor.
Chairman. No, could you please ask the member not to interrupt?
They're not interrupting. Go ahead.
No, they're speaking while I'm speaking, Mr. Chairman.
You've got the
I
floor,
want
Councillor.
I want the public to know that while I was speaking and while Councillor Munch was speaking, Councillor Shepherd was speaking.
You won't be
responding.
interrupted, Councillor. Go ahead.
Thank you. That was an interruption. Like I said, I'm shocked to hear that. To publicly humiliate another member of council by suggesting that they were unprofessional. I've never heard of that being done, but I guess it will be dealt with in due course. This is about compassion. This is about inclusiveness. And as was stated, very articulate by Councillor Barros and Councillor Munch, we're not against this organization. We don't know enough about this organization. And the suggestion that we had a week to make these inquiries, the councillor is suggesting that we should ask questions. And that's what we tried to do. We tried to ask questions to find out, what is this organization all about? I'm sorry, I don't know a lot about your organization. I don't know the interpretation of the words in your charter. And to blindly say, yeah, we'll support it because in principle we believe that it comes from goodness. But again, as was articulated by other members, there are words in your charter that need some defining. And we're not given the opportunity. We could stay here all day and ask all those questions, and still we'd need to go back and digest that information. It's for that reason that we moved the referral. But it appears, as Councillor Barros said, that the majority of the members of this council simply want to pass it for optics, without great consideration. And I must state again, categorically, why I cannot support this motion. It's nothing to do with the tenets of this organization and their charter and for compassion. But this is clearly a document that states two things. Richmond Hill has not been compassionate, and I disagree. Can we improve? Always. And after this motion is passed, I doubt very much anyone will say, that's it. Compassion has been restored. By passing of this motion to suggest that compassion will be restored is not realistic. Compassion will not be restored because we passed this motion. And so what will we do then? Will we move another charter, another organization, and where does it end? So for that, I'm personally offended that to suggest that we need to restore compassion. No, we need to always work to be compassionate, but not to say that we haven't been compassionate, because I believe we have been. But more importantly, I cannot support a motion that clearly excludes the grounds of discrimination for age, sex, marital status, family status, and disability. That's what this motion says. It says, on the basis of those things, it's not including all of the others. And for that, it's going to cause a problem. And I cannot be part of an organization or motion that does not want to include everybody, everyone. So bring it back in a different form, change the wording. Let's have a discussion with staff. Let's look into this. Let's have a dialogue before we blindly approve something without having great consideration for the words. Words matter. I will not be supporting this as is for the reasons I've stated, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so anybody else on a second round? Okay, seeing none, I think a recorded vote has been called. Okay, so recorded vote on the motion, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Voting on the motion, Councillor Munch.
No.
Thank you. Mayor West.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Liu.
Yes.
Thank you. Regional and Local Councillor DePaula.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Chan.
Yes.
Thank you. Regional and Local Councillor Pirelli.
No, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Silovitz.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Barros.
Not at this time. No.
Thank you. Councillor Shepherd.
Proudly, yes.
Thank you. The motion does carry.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving along. All right, so we have two delegations on item. No, sorry, do we have one or two delegations on the next, on item 14? No, okay, my apologies. The next delegation is 12.2, Mr. John Lee, regarding the member motion submitted by Regional Local Councillor Pirelli with respect to the Yonge and Bloomington Park. So, Mr. Lee, I see you on the screen there and I see you're unmuted, so you've got 5 minutes to address council.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, Mayor West and the council. On behalf of Richmond Hill Umbrella Resident Group, we oppose Councillor Pirelli's motion of Yonge Bloomington Park. We are deeply concerned about the feasibility, necessity, and the true intent of this motion. First is the feasibility. In early 2019, this council passed Tom Mucci's cash in lieu of Parkland motion and cut developers' Parkland fee to about a third. According to the staff report, over a 12 years period from 2019 to 2031, this cash in lieu Parkland reduction will reduce our city's revenue by $179 million. And Councillor Pirelli vote for this motion. Remember, even without this cut, the development and maintenance of Richmond Hill Parks would have been 25% short of funding. With Tom's motion, we are missing 74% or $270 million of required park funding. Councillor Pirelli, you vote for Richmond Hill to lose $179 million of park development revenue. Now, can you please tell the public where we can get the funds to fill this shortfall and purchase this Yonge Bloomington Park? Next slide, please. Second is the necessity to build this park. From the Richmond Hill Parkland map, you can clearly see the site location. Why are we building a park at the farthest north end of Richmond Hill when all the intensification projects are going to at the south end of Richmond Hill? We all know that at the north end of Richmond Hill, we have less population, but much more green space and natural resources. With very limited park development funds, it is against common sense that Pirelli wants to build a park at this location. Why? Next slide, please. Forgot to mention that the site owner is Bave Development, which is Councillor Pirelli's biggest donor, donated $18,750 to Pirelli last year alone. Is this donation related to this motion? Councillor Pirelli knows. Neither
Hey, Mr. Lee, I think you need to stick to the issue at hand. This is not about that, so I'd ask you to move on, please.
Neither judging by the city's current financial situation nor the site location, this motion should be rejected. As the municipal election is coming, we want elected councillors to represent the interests of the public, not just your donators. This is the key metric for us to endorse candidates. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we don't have any other people on this particular agenda item. So we'll bring this back to council. Item 14.2 is Council Pirelli.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to the delegate. Mr. Lee, you asked some very good questions. I can't remember all of them, but I'll try my best. So the first thing I did was I did a survey. I always want to hear what the residents of Richmond Hill think about my motions. And I'm holding this up. This is over 1,500 names of people that answered my survey. 91% said to engage the owner of the property to see if there's interest in selling it. And Mr. Lee asked a very good question. Why am I doing this? Why is it in the north? Well, I wish Mr. Lee was around in my first term of office from 2010 to 2014, where I strongly advocated for the David Dunlap Observatory to be bought by the city to preserve it as a central park, a destination park. And when we voted on that, the motion was 8-1. I stood alone on that. Had we purchased that property, it would have been 200 acres. It would have been centrally located. We would have purchased it at the time for under $1.5 million an acre. History is a wonderful thing. $1.5 million an acre. Today, it would be worth somewhere between $15 and $20 million an acre. What an investment that would have been. If we didn't want to keep it as a park, if we wanted to sell some of it off for affordable housing, provide affordable housing. But we lost that opportunity. Now I'm looking at, let me back up. We went through in 2013 our recreation plan, our cultural plan, all these plans. And the conclusion was, and we discussed this a few months back, that we were deficient in providing what the community needed, which was more soccer fields, more bubbled soccer fields, more pickleball, more other recreational activities. And the question's always, well, where would we build it? We don't have the land. We don't have the space. Well, this answers that question. Well, if we purchase a piece of land like this, then in consultation with staff and the public, then council can decide what to do with that land. Do we want more parks? Do we need more splash pads for the kids? Do we need more soccer fields? Do we need more pickleball? But we need the land. And let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that when this land is developed and we do not purchase it, it will be gone forever. So where will we build these parks that are plans that we spent a lot of money to identify say that we need more soccer fields? Where are we going to build them if we don't purchase land? Last month or the month before that, I moved a motion to enter negotiations with another piece of land in the south for an off-leash dog park or a linear park. It was turned down by council. We hear everyone, and it's important to me, and I believe it's important to all members of council, that the environment is important. And here I am trying to purchase more land, save it from development, and yet I hear resistance from a few people in the community. But my survey was loud and clear. 91% want us to enter into that negotiation. Again, there's so much information here. We lost the opportunity at the David Dunlap Observatory. I don't want to lose that opportunity here. We always say we need more parks, we need more recreation. It's there. If we're not purchasing this, what are we going to purchase? Of course, I would like it right in the center of town. We lost that opportunity at Bayview and 16th, which was right in the middle. smack dab in the middle. I don't want to lose that opportunity again. And if this council feels that we don't need any more parks and we don't need any more soccer fields and we don't need pickleball and we don't need anything else, any more recreation, then so be it. I think we need it. Our plans say we need it. And here's a solution. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We need a seconder at this point for this motion. Councillor Barros, would you like to speak?
Just briefly, I support the motion. Clearly, more park space in our city is needed. We have heard multiple times that we are deficient when it comes to soccer fields. This piece of property is a flat, open space, would be ideal in my mind for soccer fields, whether it be for permanent or whether it be for 10 years, 15 years, and then a future use put in, who knows? But I don't think if we just sit back and wait for something to happen, it's just going to happen. We need to be bold. We need to go out. We need to try to, acquire pieces. Regional councillor makes a good point that perhaps there's an opportunity to do a couple of things on the property after we've determined the scope of the land that we require for parks. Maybe there's an opportunity for low-cost housing for people to live in. Maybe there's opportunities to partner with other levels of government. Who knows? So let's get that conversation going. Let's have our staff meet with the property owner and see if there's a willingness to actually to make this happen. I think it would be a great feather in our cap to be able to say that we've done this and that we're boldly moving forward on acquiring Parkland. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Oh, sorry, Councillor Munch.
Yeah, good day. Thank you for the motion once again. I am also in favor of expanding our concept and give staff the tools, the opportunity to meet the objectives of what I believe council should be leading. I would ask the mover, though, I also have been very consistent on trying to expand a trail network, trying to get the province to include the Oak Ridge Moraine into an inclusive area so that we can have an expansion and a ring. Further to one of the councillor's motions, discussions earlier, I did engage the councillor on this discussion specifically, and we spoke about other municipalities in North America that actually have a trail network and a ring network of parks. And I share that view that we should be having an integrated park system as opposed to a destination park system. So we take the pressure off Oak Ridge's Moraine or Oak Ridge's community center. We stop the parking enforcement, putting pressure there, and seeing that we are having more urbanization and we've sprawled throughout the area, and it puts a lot of pressure on Richmond Hill and our park system. So I would ask that the mover consider maybe making a small amendment to give staff the opportunity to look at a more wholesome approach, not only with this land, but others, to try to have an integrated approach in line with our parks plan, in line with where we're going, so that they can have a concept that this council wants to have not just a destination, but actually having a trail network where people can interrelate and maybe even engage other levels of public service, including the TRCA, the Metrolinx, the York Region School Board. All of them have lands, province of Ontario. They all have lands in and around the area that is possible to have a co-relationship with, whereby we could try to integrate a unique approach. So this motion I like in concept, but I want on a more wholesome approach to assist staff in a parks and recreation plan where we can look at areas of interest. Our policy director said in one of his recent delegations that the Oak Ridge Moraine does allow some flexibility in that. I would like this motion to be inclusive of that as well, to see how can we engage pickleball, how can we engage soccer, cricket, other areas that some of our communities may want, and maybe this would be inclusive. So I'd ask the mover to consider giving direction whereby they say not just these lands, but in a wholesome approach with our other areas and engaging other levels of government to meet a wholesome approach.
I'd like to respond to that. I believe that was what's called a point of information.
Go ahead. He's asking you a question, I think.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I have had extensive conversations with Councillor Munch. He did reach out to me. Councillor Munch, I want to assure you that this is a wholesome approach, that when staff go to speak about this, they've already heard your comments and they will be taken into consideration. The first step is to see if there's a willingness from the landowner to consider selling it to us for the reasons that we've outlined. And that starts the conversation. And yes, we want an integrated trail system. We want more connectivity. As I stated to you, I was so impressed with the city of Chicago's forest preserve. I mean, I understand that's what we want to accomplish here. But to add it here now, it's not like, no, that's what we want. We want to move in that direction. So I'm not going to start wordsmithing it here. This is to start the dialogue with this applicant, this person who owns this land, because they have active applications in front of us. And if we don't do something to purchase this land, then we know the eventuality is it will be all developed. Yes, we will get either cash in lieu of Parkland or a small little parkette there, but it won't be the magnitude of what we really need. So I'm not going to add it here, but staff have heard your comments. And of course, that's the goal that we're moving towards.
Can you then there add that the comments that are made of this be put in for the staff because they have to be given direction because they don't want to go outside the direction. Although we can all talk about it here, you have to give them
Okay,
the
yeah, again, Councillor Munch, I'm happy to add it if that in the interest of going along to get along, that all comments be referred back to add a B, that all comments be referred back to staff.
Okay, great. Then I can support the motion on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Clerk, is that?
Apologize. The mover is suggesting that there should be a B to this that says that all comments of council in respect to this be referred back to staff for consideration.
Point of order,
Hold on a sec. Point of order, Councillor Barros.
Mr. Mayor. I think it's generally understood that whenever a council member speaks up here, staff is listening and they take all of our comments into consideration. I'm looking at the city manager and she's nodding her head. So whether we put it in there or whether we don't, staff aren't going to not listen to everyone else's comments because it wasn't put in the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Barros. I actually was assuming that was going to be the conclusion before you did the point of order, but thank you for your input. I actually agree that would likely be the case. And I appreciate Councillor Munch bringing it up because, I mean, it is important, you know, what we say here. But Mr. Clerk, sorry, I'll let you finish. You're off. There you go.
Thank you. I think Councillor Barros did say it well. I was trying to decide how to best phrase that. I'm not entirely sure that such an amendment or addition would be germane to the main motion, which is a very specific direction to staff to enter into negotiations.
Okay. So Councillor Munch, you've got some time left if you want to continue. Go ahead.
No, I think we got the spirit we're trying to go. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, the next person up is Councillor Chan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And let me state up front, I think there should be make reference that, yes, I, for one, including I'm sure my colleagues, we are all for environment. We are all for, increase to the extent the right location at the right cost and in alignment with the parks plan that the staff and community and all of us have been working on to increase the green spaces for our citizens to enjoy. Definitely. Let me state that up front. Having said that, I'm also looking at the whereas statement. As the mover said in another matter before this motion, and I appreciate he moved that motion. Actually, he did mention that in a couple of times verbally, so now he's putting his words into a motion. I do understand, I appreciate that. And I think what I'm getting at is that words matter. It's been said a few times, words matter. and it has to be factually correct in some of the where statement. And being the counselor, the local counselor of David Dunn Observatory, where it's located, where it's going to be a National Historic Site. Well, it's already a National Historic Site, but it will be recognized shortly this month by Parks Canada. I take great exception the way how it's being framed in the whereas. It's true. There's no doubts there are about 40% or so of the site being as part of the 5-party settlement agreement that had been now already, some have been constructed, people move in. That's true. But the fact remains, in the hands of the city of Richmond Hill, there's 100 acres, almost 60% of the land are in public hands. And back in 2017, there is a David Dunn Observatory Master Plan, which is a product that involving hundreds of people from the community, and some of us on council at the time participating with the staff, that we have a master plan. We have grand plan for developing it. And I'm proud to chair that DDO Park Steering Committee. Now, the challenge is having the resources to develop the short-term, intermediate, and long-term plan for the park. So I think that the where statement there is not factually accurate or not being inclusive of or including what I just mentioned, which are the great things that 100 acres of parklands, outdoor spaces, where actual wildlife, as I reported by nearby residents to me almost every month, wildlife are actually still there. Then it's really a treasure of Richmond Hill. I stand proud that the DDO Park is there now and it's going to be improved. So to say that all is just cookie cutting subdivision is not factually accurate. So I just want to point that out. I think that I look forward to the discussion. I honestly feel that an investment of such a nature would have to be analyzed by staff, come back with the cost effectiveness. And as I said earlier on, how it's in alignment with the parks plan and everything we're doing on council. We're ensuring it's not only wise, but it's really an investment that not only the 91% of the survey, by the way, I never got a chance to participate in the survey. I wish I could. But we do have at least 6 written correspondents who say something about this motion. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, Councillor, Regional Local Councillor DePaulo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not sure where to start with this one. I personally do not think it's a good idea. I don't think it's the right way to go. I think we're proposing to spend all of the 70 million available for parkland acquisition, or most of it, or maybe even more than that. For the size of the land hasn't been stated in this. There hasn't been any estimate of the price or anything. I know that the mover is going to say it's just to start the process, but this is asking council to take a position to direct our staff to enter into negotiations and start the process for purchasing this site. So the process is, I guess, the biggest problem that I have, Mr. Mayor. 2 or 3 months ago, this would have been welcomed in the budget discussions. It would have been. We have a parkland acquisition fund. We have a parks plan that's being developed right now, and this suggestion is welcomed as a part of that discussion to direct our staff to go and one-off negotiate with a certain landowner in Richmond Hill, on a member motion brought forward. It's just not the right way that we do things. every dollar that we have in that Parks Acquisition Fund is precious. We're going to need to use it wisely. I'm sure Mayor Maracus and Aurora would love to see this huge park for the benefit of his residents there, but we need strategically to find places in the south end of Richmond Hill where we've got enormous densities forced upon us. We're struggling to understand what the province is going to be providing for in terms of parkland with the density they're forcing on us. We have a real challenge to deliver open spaces in the south end of Richmond Hill and the north end. In our partnership with the TRCA, we have 1,000 acres currently in public hands. We have 1,000 acres of public land that our residents can enjoy in the north end of Richmond Hill. That doesn't help the families and condo dwellers in the south end of Richmond Hill that are in desperate need of outdoor recreation space.
Point of information.
So,
Point of information, Councillor Barros.
A comment was just made that we have 1,000 acres of parkland in Oak Ridges. Is the member referring to provincial parkland? Or is the member referring to city-owned parkland that we control and are able to program for soccer fields and baseball diamonds?
I find it hard to imagine
tennis courts.
being the councillor in that area that you don't know the answer to that question. That's what point of information is all about.
Oh, I'm
But-
bringing up a
But I will
bringing up a
direct
falsehood
the
that was being
staff.
mentioned.
Sorry, I will direct the question to Councillor DiPaolo. Can you answer that?
well, Mr. Mayor, I take exception to being interrupted. There's no reason for the interruption. What I stated was that within the city of Richmond Hill, we have 1,000 acres of publicly protected open space that will never be developed upon according to the Oak Ridge Marine Act, and that provides ample opportunity for those residents in the north end of Richmond Hill to get outside to enjoy those green spaces. So that goes to my argument that I don't think it's the right place, but it doesn't matter what I think, where the right place is. We need to have a process whereby we look at a comprehensive way how much money we have available for parkland acquisition and where's the most appropriate place and how best that can happen. And our park staff is in the process of developing a plan that addresses that concern. So I don't support the motion as it is. I would welcome the discussion to be had at another time. I see this merely, Mr. Mayor, as pre-election grandstanding, and all the facts that are presented are well, not all the facts, but with regards to this survey, when one councillor does a survey, we as a council cannot consider that as fact or it's hard to place a value on what that is. I mean, the question could have been merely, do you think Richmond Hill needs more parks? I don't know how it was worded, and unless our staff goes out and does a proper survey on the opinion of the residents of Richmond Hill, to me that it has no merits or value, and we're going to get to that on other member motions that are going to be discussed. And my problems are with the process and with the information that we're using to make these major decisions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I don't have anybody else at the moment. Oh, Councillor Shepherd, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to say that I agree with my colleagues, Councillor Chan and Councillor DiPaolo. This isn't about the park itself, about the environment, trails, need for pickleball courts or soccer fields. It's just the process and the manner in which it's proposed. We have the parks team that have a process in place for the acquisition of land, for assessing whether or not that cost is included in our parkland plan. And I believe we should follow the ordinary process of acquiring parks. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else on the first round? Okay, I'll put you down for second round, Councillor Pirelli. I'd like to speak on the first round. So I appreciate this motion in some respects because I think, acquiring more parkland, as has been said, is definitely a thing. And I think we need to, that is the expectation of a lot of people. But, beyond that, I guess the practical member of council hat gets worn, and I have serious concerns. I have spoken to staff quite a bit, and just to kind of get a sense of what this would mean. There's about 71 acres. I think 54 or so are developable, or something of that, give or take a bit. But the problem is that with any reasonable estimation on the cost of this, the amount of money that we have in our Parkland cash in lieu budget, which is primarily, it is one of the things that we would use in that is to acquire parkland. At the present moment in our capital sustainability plan, that the monies that are in that are all spoken for in the either immediate future or in the near future. So the reality is we don't actually have a lot of money that we could dip into in that fund and not have a ramification down the road where we would be short in the not so distant future. Keeping in mind that Parkland Cash in Lieu Fund also funds park restorations, renovations, all that kind of stuff that, and a lot of times it has to do with growth. So it's an existing park, but it needs to be renovated, maybe a little bit added to or whatever when the opportunity comes up. If we spent all the money on this one park, we wouldn't have sufficient money to deal with all those other expected costs. And as I said, I understand that a lot of the money that's in Parkland Cash in Lieu, it's a reasonably big amount right now, but it is spoken for in some way in the future. So I guess the only other thing I would say in that situation is that area of the city does have a good supply of parkland. I think there is a need for a park. Obviously, in that area, I think the need is for a community park, which would be substantially smaller than the entire thing. But I guess when that application came up for a council public meeting, the first thing that I thought about was, well, we're going to get some of the parkland in that application, or at least we better, because there would be a parkland dedication that would be necessary. There's environmental lands that will need to be given to us that can't be developed. And the issue, if I recall correctly, of the storm pond being, the developer was proposing a stratified storm pond with a underground cistern, essentially, with a park on top. I said very vehemently at that meeting that that's not acceptable. And one of the reasons it's not acceptable is that in that area, we need the full amount of parkland from any future application that comes there. And I think that would satisfy or go a fair distance in satisfying the need for parkland in that particular quadrant. In order to, there are destination parks already in Oak Ridges, and they're great. And, it's not to say we don't need other sizes of parks, but I don't think we need this. And it would be great to have it. It really would. But I just am afraid from any of the due diligence that I've done, in good conscience, I wouldn't be able to support this because I am sure that buying this now would cause a significant problem throughout the entire community, including that community, in our ability to continue with the things we want to do and we're already committing to do within our park system. Do I want to see more parkland in Richmond Hill? Absolutely, yes. But the reality is we don't have an unlimited amount of money to buy those lands and do the work we need to do in our parks. So we really need to be strategic. And while I appreciate this idea that's being brought forward by a member of council, I think that, we really at this point in time need to be more strategic. And that is my opinion. I suspect there may be disagreements with that on council, but that would be my thoughts on this issue. So those are my thoughts. We'll move to a second round. I understand Councillor Pirelli wants a second opportunity. So go ahead, Councillor.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to respond briefly to some of the comments made by my colleagues and some of the comments made on social media in anticipation of this meeting and some of the correspondence that we received. The reserve funds are for acquiring, as you stated, new parks and refurbishing current parks. The comment, there's so many comments here that it's impossible for me to respond in 5 minutes. So I'll just give an overarching view of what I believe those comments are. I think it was George W. Bush once said, you're either part of the problem or you're part of the solution. And what I've been hearing here today is that everybody's picking on all the problems with it, but aren't suggesting what the solution is. And the reason I state that, Mr. Chairman, is that in 2013, I believe, or 2011, we created a Parks and Recreation Plan. And we identified that in that plan, we needed an X amount of soccer fields and pickleball courts and all other amenities. We needed them. And yet, our current way of doing things has yielded a deficit. We did not meet those targets. City staff simply were not able or could not provide that which was identified in 2013. That was 9 years ago, Mr. Chairman and members of council, and they could not do it. I keep suggesting ways on how we can meet that demand, and this is just one of them. And it's clear, Mr. Chairman, that a few of us here on council want to start a dialogue, want to start a process whereby we can satisfy those needs. But it's clear that the majority of this council simply just wants to be obstructionists. We claim that we want more parks, we want more recreation, but this is not the way to do it. But yet, in 4 years, I haven't heard one suggestion on how we get it done. I keep bringing up suggestions, and council keeps turning them down. And to answer Councillor Chan's comments earlier, where he stated that he was disappointed with the whereas. The whereases are background information. In the previous motion, I was upset and disappointed with the therefores, because the therefores are the ones that we're voting on, not the whereases. And the David Dunlop Observatory lands of 200 acres, we missed an opportunity to purchase almost half of them. And what happened with those lands is a cookie cutter subdivision that no one can deny. So it is very factual. We have that money in our fund. We need to find a way. And if you're not going to support a dialogue to meet those needs, then I would strongly suggest you come up with some ideas, because staff hasn't been able to do it in 9 years. This satisfies those needs. This gives us the land that we can purchase. And maybe we don't purchase all of it. Maybe staff come back and say, look, it's not for sale at all. Or maybe half is for sale. And we don't know what the price will be. Staff will negotiate. If you would like me to negotiate, I'd be happy to go and negotiate as well, if council would direct me. But I have confidence in our real estate department. We can make deals. That's what it's all about. We can do land swaps. We can do all kinds of things if we really want. It's a way to start the dialogue to get the things that this council claims over the years that they want. But yet, when a suggestion is put forward, all kinds of reasons for not doing it come up. It's a sad day, Mr. Chairman. And I'll keep trying to give the residents of Richmond Hill what they need. And I will not waver on that. And I thank those councillor members that have the same vision that I do in saving the parks, providing more recreation activities, and voting for motions like this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. All right, anybody else on a second round? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of the motion that we have in front of us? Recorded vote by Councillor Silowitz.
Thank you. Voting on the motion, Councillor Silowitz.
No.
Thank you. Regional Local Councillor Pirelli. Councillor Pirelli, please.
Yes, please.
Thank you. Councillor Liu.
No.
Thank you. Councillor Barros.
Yes.
Thank you. Mayor West.
No.
Thank you, Councillor Munch.
Yes.
Thank you, Regional Local Councillor DePaula.
No.
Thank you, Councillor Chan.
No.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd.
No.
Thank you. That motion fails to carry.
Okay, thank you. So the next item on the agenda is a delegation by Graham Churchill at one McKay Avenue regarding the member motion submitted by Regional Local Councillor Pirelli with respect to the green and blue bin replacement home delivery.
Okay.
Mr. Churchill, I see you on the screen there and you're unmuted, so you have 5 minutes to address council.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Councillor Pirelli has put forward a motion today asking for free home delivery of green-blue replacement bins. I ask you not to approve this motion. While I support the council's decision from September 22nd, 2021, offering the additional services of a free home delivery is a step too far. Doing so would encourage abuse of the service. People need to put energy into exchanging their blue bins, or at least be charged some nominal fee if they if they need them delivered. It's a well-documented fact that people will accept anything for free, but if the exchange requires a small amount of money or effort, most will make a value judgment and will only proceed if they need them. The fact that Councillor Pirelli asked people on Facebook who would like a free service, and many put up their hands, is not a representative survey. When I became aware of this motion, I polled many friends and neighbors on their views, and most felt that a blue bin delivery service was an unnecessary expense, and they would have no problem going themselves to exchange any damaged bins. However, many also noted that if a free service were available to all, they would probably avail themselves of it. After all, why not? It's free. That's not to say that we should not have a delivery service available for those who do not own a car or cannot drive. This could be easily set up through one of the many home delivery services available. I expect that the associated costs would be minimal, but any cost will help deter those who really don't need it from participating. We need to be prudent with taxpayer money, not offer free services that are completely unnecessary. There are many other ways in which our tax dollars can be effectively utilized for the betterment of Richmond Hill. This is not one of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Churchill. That's all the delegations on that item. So we'll bring this back to Council, Councillor Pirelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Churchill, for your delegation. I want to respond briefly to Mr. Churchill's comments. My motion says to direct staff to come back with a plan to include green blue bin home delivery and pickup service. I'm going to suggest to the delegate that there may not be any additional cost to this. I'm hopeful that we'll do something like they do in Vaughan, I believe, and in Aurora, or is it Markham? Vaughan and Aurora, where the waste collector, I believe Miller, don't quote me, provides the service. As we all know, I want to make clear for Mr. Churchill, the bin exchange program now for broken bins is a free service. So if they come to City Hall, to the operations center and pick up a bin with an old Richmond Hill bin that's damaged, they will get one for free. If Miller Waste agrees to pick up like they do in other municipalities, there may not be any additional cost. The bottom line is, and why I brought this motion forward, is because it's coincidental. It's so funny how some things happen and transpire. I was riding my bicycle along Elgin Mills, and I always turn in front of the operations center, and there was a lady coming back from the doors on Sunday. And I said, "Excuse me, but is there something I can help you with?" And without asking who I was, she said, "Well, I came to exchange a bin, but they're closed." And then I introduced myself, and she said, "Oh, I heard about your program." And I said, "Okay, would you like a bin exchange?" She said, "Yes." And I said, "How come?" And I took the opportunity to ask her, "Why, don't you come during the week?" She goes, "I can't. I work during those hours. So, if I understand the city can't be open 24 hours a day, it's just not, financially feasible. But we have to have an option for people to exchange their bins outside of normal working hours, because let's face it, most people work between the hours of 9 to 5, and they can't come and exchange their bins. So it's for this reason, and the fact that it's done in other municipalities, that I think it's a valuable service to provide to our residents. We want people to recycle. We certainly don't want them to throw their recyclables into the trash. And sometimes, if it was suggested that we add a cost, well, we had that debate and we ruled against that. I apologize. I have a broken phone that I can't seem to turn off the ringer. I'm trying to get a new one. But this is a service that can be provided without. Please don't call back. I'm in a meeting. Thank you. I'll just leave it on. That way they can't call back. The important part here is that we provide a service that is needed by our residents. Back in the 2010 to 2014 council term, it was stated that windrow snow clearing was unattainable. It was too expensive. It was going to cost $4 to $8 million a year to do, and that was a waste of taxpayers' dollars. And look today, after I moved that motion, we got it implemented. It actually costs 88 cents to clear a driveway on every occasion. 88 cents for every house cleared per occasion. It's not $4 million. It's not $6 or $8 million a year. It's under $800,000 a year. And that's money well spent. And our residents love that service. This is another one of those initiatives made by me that I believe the residents of Richmond Hill, notwithstanding some people's belief that my surveys aren't relevant, but they are, because it's like Mr. Graham spoke to all his neighbors. I spoke to the residents of Richmond Hill. And I think his survey is just as valid as my survey, except mine went citywide and it wasn't just with my neighbors. And in some communities, people have the luxury of being retired, not having to go to work. And they have the time during the day to come pick up a recycle bin that's damaged. But if we really want our members in the community to participate in the recycling programs, we need, and we've already decided that the bin exchange is free, then we need to make it accessible for them. And this is one way to do it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. At this point, we would need a seconder for this motion. Do we have a seconder for the motion?
I'll second the motion.
Okay.
I like the lead up music to my second. I'll just speak briefly.
Okay.
So I have a question first to operations staff. The blue bins, as I understand, can only be picked up at the operations center. That's correct?
Who would like to take that?
If we could maybe pause the meeting while the resident has a phone conversation.
I think Ms. Steele is having technical microphone difficulties.
Yeah, this one's working though. Sorry about that.
Okay, no problem. Go ahead.
Yes, that's correct. The blue bins are picked up at operations.
And is the website currently correct where residents can only pick up at the operations center Monday to Friday between 8:30 and 4:30?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so there you have it. We are saying, Mr. and Mrs. residents of Richmond Hill, if you cannot attend the operations center, one location, between the hours of 8:30 and 4:30, Monday to Friday, you've got to take time off work to go and exchange your blue bin. I would like to hear back from staff on what options there are available to assist our residents that find themselves in this situation. The motion is doing just that. We're going to hear back. Staff might come back and say, not possible at all. Or they might come back and say, hey, you know what? We spoke with the contractor and they're happy to help us out in this way. They got trucks driving all over Richmond Hill all the time. Maybe they're able to say, you know what? We have other facilities that are open during the weekends and we can place bins there for. This is a great question that Councillor Pirelli is asking staff. And I'm delighted to support it and hear what they have to say back.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else on this? Regional Local Councillor DePaulo, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to move a motion to refer this item to the budget process. This would have been a great suggestion 2 to 3 months ago, back in February when we were discussing the budget. But any decision like this that will involve an expenditure to taxpayers' money is always going to have a consequence.
Point of order.
Point of order, Councillor Pirelli.
Yes, can you please tell the member to refrain from stating something that's not in my motion? There's absolutely no monetary fee to this pickup, and that's what he stated. Thank you.
Okay. I don't think he was out of line stating that he anticipates that there would be a cost to that.
No,
To the-
he stated there would be a cost, not anticipated.
Well, that's what I mean. He's anticipating that there will be a cost to the program.
Well, that's not what my motion speaks to.
Well, I think it does because
No, it says to come back with a plan.
well, I know, but what he's anticipating is the plan will have a cost.
Great. When if that's the case,
Okay.
then we'll deal with that
I
at the
don't think
time.
I don't think that's a point of order. Go ahead,
Well,
Councillor.
it is.
DePaulo.
If there's no cost whatsoever, that would be astounding. I think it is going to involve some sort of fee to institute this.
Point of order,
service.
Mr. Chairman. Can we have the member please speak to the motion? This is not about asking them to expend money and a fee. This is about to come back with a plan, period.
What I think, I don't agree. I think what the councillor is saying is completely legitimate. It's not a point of order. It's not a procedural issue. What I think he's anticipating is that whatever the plan may end up being will have some cost. We don't know how much because you're right, we haven't done the investigation, but there will be some cost. Go ahead,
Point of
Regional Local
information.
Councillor. Yes.
So this is directed to Councillor DePaula, who's looking to move an amendment or a direction to staff, a referral. So my point of information is, how much money is it you'd be looking to place in the budget for this? Because I could see this motion being a reasonable motion if staff had reported back saying it would cost X amount of money, and your concern was that that direction would be taken out of the budget process. But I see this as nothing but a frivolous and vexatious motion to just quash the actual motion that's on the floor.
I think
given that there is no monetary
I think
funds
saying
involved.
frivolous and vexatious
So if
is
you
not
could please,
appropriate.
And I would agree with that.
Mr. DePaula, if you could give us the actual dollar amount that you would want to act as a placeholder in the upcoming budget, I would then be able to understand particularly what you're looking at.
Okay, Councillor DePaula, I can't answer that on your behalf.
Well, there's nothing frivolous or vexatious in my intent to move this item to the budget process, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, go ahead.
Point of information.
Councillor Barros.
So, Mr. DePaula, you're going to move this to the budget as a what?
Okay, Councillor Barros, with all due respect, these are questions, you could have a speaking time on the amendment.
I'm trying to understand his motion. That's
No,
what a
but
point of
it's
information
not,
is. A
you
point of
could
information is in
wait.
the
I
procedural
agree
bylaw for
agree
me
with
to
you. I'm
understand
saying out of
exactly what the motion on
I
the
am
floor
saying,
is and for me
sir,
to get an answer from the person.
Sir, I am
who's
saying
moving
out of
it.
respect.
And I would like to get that response, not just I want to move it to the
question
budget
could easily
process.
be asked
We
while
need
you're
on
speaking.
council to be clear on what we're asking for. And that is exactly what my point of information is doing.
And And that's fine. I'm saying that those types of questions could be asked when it's your turn to speak as well. Councillor DiPaolo, if you have an answer to that, go ahead. If not, then continue with your speaking.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And there'll be opportunity to speak to my referral motion. Mr. Clerk, I'm intending to refer the member motion made by Regional and Local Councillor Pirelli regarding the free bin delivery service to residents to be considered in the 2023 budget process. That's the exact wording. No one need question it or interrupt me further. They can
Point of information.
they can debate or
Okay, sorry,
give their
Regional
opinion
Local
when there's
Councillor
a
DiPaolo,
chance.
we have a point of information from Councillor Barros. Councillor Barros?
Now that we have the wording on your motion, which is that this would be debated at the 2023, what is the dollar value that you would suppose we would be debating at that said meeting?
Regional Local Councillor DiPaolo, do you have an answer to that or not?
Mr. Mayor, I don't believe I need to answer specific questions that I'm being interrupted to answer.
Okay, go ahead. You have Mr. Clerk, we have a proposed referral motion. Do you have the wording for that?
I do, Mr. Mayor, happy to put it on the screen.
Thank you. That's precisely how I worded it. I appreciate that. I hope other members of council can understand that I have a problem with the
Information?
process and, even considering
Point of
implementing
information?
it.
Sorry, Councillor Barros.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I see the motion now on the screen,
I know.
and I'd like to get clarification on the said motion as to what it is staff would be doing leading up to that budget process.
Okay.
Is the member directing staff to go and put together a comprehensive report on how this can be achieved and presented at the budget meeting, therefore not allowing residents, if it ends up being of no cost, to not get this service sooner?
Regional Local Councillor DiPaolo.
I really don't understand, Mr. Mayor, why I'm being asked these questions.
Well, because you moved the motion, sir.
But when it's your turn to speak, I'll answer.
It is my turn to speak. I'm
50
using a
questions.
point of
You've got
information.
5 minutes to ask
Point
me
of
whatever you
information
want.
is in the
Just,
procedural bylaw.
excuse me, gentlemen. Regional Local Councillor DiPaolo, if you have an answer, that's fine. If you don't, that's fine. You do have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. So I've moved a referral motion. I've had the floor for a minute and 20 seconds. I've been interrupted 6 times. It's quite simple what I'm proposing. I'm not happy with the process that the institution of a
Point of
new
information.
7.
Okay, Councillor Barros.
What is the process that will be taking place between now and the budget meeting that Councillor DiPaolo is referring to?
Councillor.
Mr. Mayor, it's up to Regional and Local Councillor Pirelli if he wants to put forward a carefully thought out or proposed suggestion to the budget process. It's up to the budget chair at the time. It's up to the incoming council that will be considering this. There's any number of ways that this could proceed, but that is the proper place where we would discuss the institution of a new service delivery. When we introduced the Windrow program.
Point of information.
Regional Local Councillor Pirelli. Go ahead, sir.
Well, I think you should let him finish with his point of information.
You have a
Councillor
point.
Barros-
You called a point of information.
I did, but Councillor Barros's point of information is being responded to right now. I think it would be disrespectful to.
Well, you called a point of information, which
Right,
takes
and as soon
precedence.
as he's done with his, I'll ask mine, unless you want me to go ahead.
Go ahead. That's the order we're supposed to do it in. Go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, my question to the mover of this referral motion is this referral motion would be in order if there was any suggestion that I wanted a budgetary amount to be associated with the free home delivery of blue and green bins. That's not what I asked for. So this referral to the budget process, there is no monetary amount being discussed. It is a complete, it just puts this into the abyss.
Okay, I'm
There's
sorry.
nothing to be discussed. So why does the mover of the motion feel that this has to go to the budget when there's no budgetary amount being requested?
Okay, if I may, in an effort to be helpful, Ms. Steele, is it likely that there will be a cost to delivering bins to people's houses in an exchange basis? I guess maybe that's the part that we're having some confusion with here. Could you help to clarify that?
Well, we won't know that, Mr. Chairman, until staff go out.
It's the likelihood, Councillor
No,
Pirelli.
it's not about likelihood.
Ms.
The
Steele,
motion is
if
simple,
Ms.
Mr.
Steele,
Mayor.
we're
Yeah.
not, excuse me, we're
On
not running it on a
likelihood?
whim. We're running a council meeting here. Ms. Steele.
Oh,
Okay.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So we haven't had time to fully investigate all the different options, but the options we've found so far do have a budget implication.
Okay. So I think
how
in
much
terms
is
of the
that?
points of information and the relevance of sending this to the budget, I believe what's happening here is that there is an expected budget amount, and it is within Councillor DePaulo's right under our procedural bylaw to move a referral motion to budget when there's an expectation that there will be a budget implication. So I hope that answers your question. Councillor Barros, I can't even remember what point of information we were in the middle of with you. Are we done with your question?
I've yet to get an answer to any of my questions.
Okay, well, and that's,
Should I start again as
No.
per your direction?
no, I think that
You don't want to hear my question.
No, I think we've heard your question. Which question were you on when Councillor Pirelli moved his point of information?
I was trying to find out the process that Councillor DePaula was referring to that was going to happen. And then I was I was really kind of set back when he said that would be up to Councillor Pirelli. But Councillor Pirelli laid out a motion today that would give direction for
Okay.
staff to do something. So it seemed that Deputy Mayor DePaula was just kind of flustered at the time, was just saying anything. Words were just kind of flowing freely.
Okay,
Perhaps we should take a break so that people can get their thoughts together, get their train of thought together.
okay,
and we
thank
can
you.
speak
Thank
logically.
you. We're waiting for an answer. Is there an answer to that? Sorry, you were interrupted, but go ahead if there's an answer to that.
Mr. Chair, you cannot say I interrupted. A point of information is procedurally correct.
That's
It's
correct.
not
No,
interrupting.
okay, my apologies. The speaking time that he was in was cut by your point of information, which is procedurally correct. You're correct. Go ahead, Councillor
Interrupting.
DePaulo.
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I understand a point of information is to get clarification on the wording of the motion. I don't understand why anything's not clear with the motion. I want to take this matter and refer it to the 2023 operating budget process. In whatever manner or form that takes place, however regional local councillor Pirelli wants to bring it to that process, that's what I'm proposing council does with this suggestion. I'm not even weighing in whether or not it's a good suggestion or not. It's not a free home delivery service. It's not free to the city. If it were, then is he asking that the residents are paying for this delivery service? We're going to put in a charge. It's going to be a free service, free to the city or free to the resident? Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the mover,
Okay.
just to help me with the.
Okay, being cognizant of the fact that we don't actually have a seconder, so
Okay.
I'll allow the question, but then we're looking for Councillor Silovitz is going to second it. That's fine. Councillor Pirelli, you've got a question directed to you.
Point of order.
Councillor Barros.
Motion on the floor is regional local councillor DePaula's. For him to ask a question of the mover, he's asking the question of himself. There's a motion on the floor.
It wasn't seconded. Okay.
So now we want to go back and talk about the main motion?
Okay, well, that's
Mr. Mayor, I'm done with my time.
Okay, thank you.
I've moved the motion.
Okay, fair enough.
I really don't wish to argue with these councillors.
Okay, Councillor Silovitz, as a seconder, did you want to speak to this?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not necessarily. I fully support what Regional Councillor DePaulo has stated. Nothing is free. There's no question there will be costs to this. And our staff need to investigate that and bring it to a budget meeting next year. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Shepherd.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Point of information,
Councillor Barros.
how much money will this cost for us to deliberate at the budget
Okay, I'm
meeting?
going to have to rule that out of order because that's not a point of information. That's what we're talking about right now on this. No, it isn't.
There's a motion on the
No,
floor.
no, it's not. It's a point of information is about something that's actually on the floor that you need to know about in order to continue the
It's
conversation.
going to be going to the budget
No,
process.
we don't.
For how much money?
We don't know this.
We don't know it's going to cost money, but we would send it to a budget
Okay, so
process?
you have the floor, Councillor Shepherd. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Councillor DePaula, for bringing up this revised motion. Just to speak to some of the comments that have been made, we have reiterated today that words do matter. The wording of the original motion seems to state that is directing staff to include the free green and blue bin delivery. So it doesn't give them the opportunity to contemplate whether or not that's feasible, at what cost that product, this plan could be implemented. And frankly, Councillor Pirelli spoke to the idea of including everybody. Well, there's a lot of Richmond Hill residents that may not be included in the free bin delivery process just by virtue of living in apartment buildings. So I think it's prudent that we allow staff to look into this matter. Perhaps we can conduct a survey of Richmond Hill residents on our website to get a better idea of what Richmond Hill residents want. And I think it's a fabulous idea to bring this back as part of the budget process to have a meaningful discussion once we have some concrete costs available to us. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Barros. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. Through you to staff. It was mentioned that there's a preliminary cost. Can we hear what the preliminary costs are and for what options?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So we have invested a similar program to what Vaughan runs with a delivery company, and that came out around $75,000 for the year. It uses a delivery company to deliver the bins, and we had to base it on a certain number of deliveries per week to get that cost. We did also look into some in-house costs for doing it, which were a little bit more than that at this point. But there are other options which we haven't investigated yet.
Are there other options that you have or haven't investigated?
We know there are options, but we don't have costs for them, such as having Miller, our waste delivery company, do the delivery. We don't have a cost for that yet.
Okay, and is it clear to you after this conversation that you've been directed to do a fulsome investigation and get a staff report prepared for the budget process?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay, is there any? Okay, Councillor Pirelli, go ahead.
I apologize. I missed that dialogue, but I do have a question of staff through you, Mr. Chairman. It was my intent with this motion to get staff, give them a couple of weeks to come back and see if there was a way to implement this free delivery service. It means free to the residents. Of course, there's always a cost to somebody, but it's going to be borne by somebody other than the residents. That's what it means, free. Now, what it's going to cost the city, we don't know. That's why I asked the question and moved this motion. I wanted staff to have 2 weeks to look into it and let me know if there were associated costs. If at that time there were associated costs, because we couldn't do it without a cost to the city, then of course the proper process would be to refer it to the budget process once we know that a cost is associated with it. That's why you'll see my motion does not talk about costs. So I can't support this referral motion unless staff assure me that they're going to start the investigation immediately and report to this council immediately if they discover that Miller, for example, is willing to bear the cost of the delivery service. There's no reason why the residents of Richmond Hill should have to wait until the budget process if there's actually no cost associated with it. So procedurally speaking, this is out of order. To refer to the budget process when no budget has been established. That's what Councillor Barros has been trying to say for the last hour. So I can't support a referral motion to a budget process when no budget has been established. There is no budget. And it would be a shame to have to defer it for a year to 2023 process, budget process, if we could have implemented it today without any cost. Through to staff. Is that understood when in my original motion? And is that understood in this referral motion? Or are you going to, what are you going to do between now and 2023?
I'm not sure I understand the question exactly, but we do need some time to investigate the options. Even reporting back for June 22nd is difficult for us. I mean, the deadline for reports to June 22nd are actually today. So we do need some time to look into it. My understanding has always been that we would do a fulsome investigation of different options for how we might provide the service and present those to council as options.
It appears that you stated earlier that you already did an investigation into providing such a service and that there were costs associated with. Could you share those with us? Oh, I missed your question. I apologize for that, but I'm sorry.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, as I stated earlier, we have investigated some options, but we haven't fully investigated all of the options. We do have one cost estimate for hiring a delivery company to provide the service, which was around $75,000 per year. But it was based on, we had to estimate how many bins that would be per week to cost that. So there's lots of different iterations of costs and how the program could run. So we don't have those fully done.
Yeah, $75,000 a year is not something that I was willing to support. I believe that if staff engaged with Miller Waste, we could have this done cost-free at Miller Waste expense. I think they would entertain that. Have you spoken to Miller Waste about this?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we have contacted Miller, but we haven't got a response from them yet.
Right. Okay. So I can appreciate that, 2 weeks is not enough time for you to get back. What do you think would be an appropriate time to get back to council to see if Miller Waste would be able to implement this service free to the city and to the residents? What would you need? A month or two?
A point of order, Councillor DiPaolo.
Mr. Mayor, the questions bear no relevance to the motion on the floor. We're considering the motions to put this into next year's operating budget process.
I actually do agree with you, but I will allow the question. It is in a roundabout way germane to the discussion that we're having. So I don't know if you can provide any more clarity at this time, Ms. Steele.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think that if Miller comes back and says that they can do it for free, then we could bring that to council when we find out that information.
Okay. And thank you, Ms. Steele, for that. That was the whole intent of my motion. Let's make some calls. Let's do a preliminary investigation into this. Let's reach out to Vaughan. Let's reach out to Aurora, see what's going on and see if we can do this free of charge. I believe Miller will be receptive to that. And I'm saddened to see that this probably will pass, this motion, because there's a clear divide on council. And sometimes the facts don't matter. And unfortunately, it's the residents of Richmond Hill that will suffer for this passing of this referral motion to the abyss in the 2023 budget where no budgetary amounts are required. Sadly, I just vote no against this and let's move on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, is there anybody else that would like, okay, Councillor Munch.
Good day. In this consideration for free home to be referred to the budget process, through the chair, is this also going to look at asking for a fee for residents as an option? So if a resident says, so if a resident wants to have the service and there's a delivery fee, let's call it X dollars, would the resident be able to do that if we were to be able to provide that? Is that going to be an option for you for consideration?
Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if you will. I think what staff are saying is that we need some time to appropriately look at the options that may be available to us and get into the weedy detail behind what that looks like, what the cost would be to the city, what the cost may be proposed to the residents, et cetera. So we cannot answer all these in-depth questions here today, but it would be part of a more in-depth report, which I don't suspect would be even realistic before perhaps the fall meeting of council. If not budget. If this resolution goes through, then we would report all of that through the budget process.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor DePaulo, you want to wrap up?
No, I'd like a second opportunity to speak.
I don't think there is a second. My apologies, because this is not an amendment. You're right. Go ahead, Councillor. Councillor DePaulo,
On a
you were
second
first.
round,
Go
then.
ahead.
Yeah, I didn't have much to say, Mr. Mayor, except for I think it needs to be pointed out that the residents of Richmond Hill are paying for this service no matter what. There is no such thing as a free service. Whether the resident who receives the bin is paying or getting it for free, or whether the rest of Richmond Hill through their tax dollars are paying for the service. There's just no such thing as anything being free whatsoever. It's just misleading to suggest that a service
Point of information.
is free.
Okay. Councillor Munch.
Mover keeps talking about free and not free. We're not going to have a debate about that because I, in my mind, have lots of options of which I don't understand what your definition of free may not be. May be a cost to the city.
Okay, this is a question?
So when the mover is now talking about costs, and I'm not sure, as the city manager has said, they're going to come back in the fall and come back for a budget process. And I asked the question early on is, would they consider other options? And I keep hearing money and options kind of thing. And I can tell you that there are several options, NGOs, for example, there are counselors willing to help. There might be delivery people, there might be retired people might want to offer that service. There might be people at the city may want to help. Might be other options that I'm not even considering now. Those have zero impact on budget. Zero. In fact, it could have. So when I hear these comments from the mover of free, not free, we're not clearly not a business background of looking at all options because costs as it relates to the city, costs as it relates to the city is what we're talking about.
Okay.
So here, when I hear him speak,
yeah,
he's now directing based upon his motion, and I was going to support it, but now based on his comments,
okay,
I can't support it.
This is not a question directed to anybody. So who has the floor now? Councillor DePaulo, go ahead.
Wow. I just want to get through my turn to speak without being interrupted. I don't understand what the nature of that interruption was, Mr. Mayor. I'm trying to say it as simply as possible. There's a talk of instituting a new service. If that service takes the cost off the original homeowner and on to the city, I just wanted to discuss the possibility of implementing any new service through the budget process. That's what we did with the window service. We didn't just make a council motion to implement the window program. First, as budget chair, I had to find millions of dollars in savings before we could talk about Councillor Pirelli's proposed window service.
Point of order.
Point of order,
Speaking
Councillor
directly to
Pirelli.
the motion.
Can we speak to the motion, please? This
Yeah.
is about referring it to the budget.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor DePaulo.
Mr. Mayor, I am talking directly as to why I am suggesting that this be referred to the budget process. I don't know if I should challenge the ruling or what I can do.
Has there been a ruling?
No, you know what, Councillor Pirelli, in fairness, you brought up the windrow service in your comments. I didn't stop you. And
That was in my
if you're
motion,
using,
not in a
if you're
referral.
using this to illustrate the point that it's nothing's free, I get it. That's germane to what we're talking about. But let's all remember on council that we need to stick to the subject at hand. So go ahead, Councillor DiPaolo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I reserve the right to give a quick wrap up on this motion, but it is simply to refer to what the budget process would. But I believe the implementation of this service or any other needs to be discussed against all of the other services that could be implemented were we not bearing the cost of this service. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Pirelli, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move an amendment. I'd like to add that until such time as this motion, this referral can be brought, that staff can respond to this referral, that myself and other members of council, and I believe Councillor Munch and Councillor Barrows would be in agreement, we'll ask them shortly, for council to grant us the permission to staff the operations center or another staff city facility on Saturdays between 9 and noon to provide this service free of charge to the city and free of charge to the residents, that it will be staffed by myself and or volunteers on my behalf, Councillor Munch and his staff, volunteer staff, and or Councillor Barrows and his staff. No cost to the city, no cost to the taxpayer. That is my amendment. So there's a B, that we be granted the permission in the interim to provide a free bin exchange service on Saturdays between 9 a.m. and noon. If you want me to get into the details, we will pick up the bins during staff time. I will have them stored, and we don't even need to get inside the operations center. We will do it outside as weather permitting on Saturdays between 9 and 12 to provide this service to the residents of Richmond Hill. That is my amendment. If the clerk could put it up.
Okay, I look to your guidance on this, Mr. Clerk. This is a referral motion. Is that? I'm not sure that that's actually germane to the referral motion, or if it would be procedurally allowed. But I'll look to your advice on that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The rule about an amendment is that it has to be closely related to the motion or germane to the motion under consideration. The motion under consideration is a motion to refer a motion to the budget process. Whereas I understand the proposed amendment is to implement a service. Therefore, it would be certainly my opinion or my advice that is not necessarily closely related to the procedural motion to refer, which is a procedural motion. But I do leave it in council's hands. It is your meeting and your procedures.
Yeah, I tend to agree. That's not in order at this time, Councillor. We're dealing with something specific, and you're adding something that really is not related to the motion.
So thank you, Mr. Chairman. I respectfully disagree with the clerk's interpretation, and I disagree with the chairman's ruling. I will not call for a challenge to the chair. I believe that I've made my point very clear. I'm trying to provide a service, timestamp noon, so that we can play this over and over again in the future. that I've tried to move a motion to try and get free service to residents who can't come during the week, and all I get is roadblock after roadblock after roadblock. I didn't hear anybody suggest that after this referral motion, Councillor Pirelli, we're going to allow you to make a motion to provide this free service both to the city and to the residents. So, Mr. Chairman, I ask you this question. Will you grant me the opportunity to provide this free service and move a motion here today after this one?
Point of order.
Mr. Clerk, I think we stick.
I'm asking you a question,
Okay,
Mr.
sorry.
Chairman. You're the chairman of this
Regional
meeting.
Councillor DiPaolo, you have a point of order.
I want to call the question. I want to move to end debate, move to close debate.
Okay, well, right now we're dealing with, we're in the middle of something else. So, Mr. Clerk, would it be allowed for an additional motion that's not on the agenda at this time? I would have to say that I would assume that answer to that is no. A member motion could be put forward at a future council meeting, but on this council meeting, we have the agenda and we've already approved it.
Mr. Mayor, I certainly would concur with that interpretation. If I might add, for the benefit, it would appear that Councillor Pirelli's proposal is closely related to the matter generally under discussion, his member's motion related to free home delivery. If a motion to refer passes, the procedure bylaw is very specific in section 5.6.10E. It says, if decided in the affirmative, if being the motion to refer precludes any amendment, debate, or vote in relation to the preceding main motion. So anything that would be closely related to that item would be precluded at this meeting.
Okay, so that would be my ruling, Councillor.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the clerk. Through you to the clerk, Mr. Chairman. Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the clerk. I'm waiting for permission to ask the clerk a
Go ahead.
question, Mr. Chairman. Well, you need to respond. We want to follow the procedures.
Okay, go ahead and respond, Councillor.
Mr. Clerk, the person running this meeting, chairing this meeting is the mayor. And if the mayor ruled that it would be okay and council ruled and voted on allowing me to add it to the agenda, would there be anything procedurally incorrect with that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if I understand the question, if the chair makes a ruling, that's that something is in order. That's the chair's ruling. The only option in that case would, if council does not agree, of course, they can challenge the chair. But otherwise, if the chair makes a ruling, the chair makes a ruling. And then generally, council would be aware that I am sometimes asked a question after the chair has made a ruling. And my response is always, the chair has ruled.
Right. Thank you. So my question to the chair is, when this motion is done with, will you grant me the opportunity to add to the agenda the opportunity for me, Councillor Munch and Councillor Barros, to put a motion on the floor to ask permission from council to staff the operations center or another city facility on Saturday between 9 and noon at no cost to the city and no cost to the resident?
I've already answered that question. The answer to that is no.
Thank you.
If you would
Thank
like,
you. Thank you.
I'm not finished.
If you would like I have the floor. Thank you.
If you would like to do that as a member motion, you're free to do that.
A member
Go ahead.
I know I could, what I can
You
do.
said you
with a
still have the
member
floor.
motion.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, look, I just wanted to state for the record, you've noticed the laughing while I was speaking from this side of the bench. It is clear, ladies and gentlemen of Richmond Hill, that this council does not want to do anything to help the residents.
Okay,
When it-
Councillor Pirelli, if you can speak to what you're supposed to be speaking to right now, we have an,
Speaking to the referral.
no, you're not. You're
Absolutely.
impugning other members of council. Go ahead and
Yet
speak.
another
speak-
example of an
No,
interruption.
no,
when a member
excuse
of
me, sir.
council is
Excuse me,
speaking.
sir. I'm asking you.
This
to
is just
stick to-
another
No,
interruption,
it
ladies
actually
and
isn't.
gentlemen.
I'm asking you to speak
Residents
to
of
the issue
Richmond
at
Hill,
hand.
be clear. I've tried my best to try and provide a service to the residents. This council won't have it. They just want to kick the can down the road. And so what can I do except I will offer free home delivery myself, and I'll continue to do so as I've done for the last month. I have no other choice. The council doesn't want to do it. They don't want to ask staff to do it. I will do it myself personally. I withdraw my motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Chan, I have you next to speak.
Thank you
On
very
the
My
much.
amendment.
motion has been withdrawn. I withdraw my
It
motion.
actually was not on the agenda to begin with, but go ahead. Councillor.
Absolutely it is. My motion is
Okay.
withdrawn.
Oh, the motion, the whole motion has been withdrawn. Okay.
So, Mr. Mayor, just to be clear,
Mr. Mayor,
Do I have
I
the
just
floor?
Okay,
stated.
excuse me, sorry, Councillor Chan,
Yeah,
excuse me for a
Councillor
second.
Chan.
Sorry, I think I understand what you're saying now.
My
Okay,
motion,
I
member
understand.
motion is withdrawn.
Mr. Clerk, we are in the middle of discussing this and have been for quite some time. It's my understanding that once that happens, the motion is owned by council and therefore it can't be withdrawn. And I'm not sure that I'm correct on that. If you could help me to understand that.
Thank you. Through Mr. Mayor, so the procedure bylaw does say that after a motion has been moved or seconded, it is in the possession of council for consideration, but may be withdrawn by the mover at any time before it has been voted on. However, we're actually not considering the motion. We're considering the motion to refer at this time. So the procedure bylaw is silent on the possibility of withdrawing a motion, the main motion, during the time that you're actually considering a motion to refer. It is absolutely silent on, and to the best of my recollection, I'm not
Point of
aware
information.
of.
Point of information.
Can I finish with mine, please?
No,
Why not?
it's a point of information. This should be a question that you're asking. Councillor,
I'd
go
like to
ahead.
ask a legal question right now.
That's what I was.
The clerk has just said, based upon the law that I understand. So I want to clear here, if we have to take this to a much higher level, because this is
Okay,
getting
that's
crazy. I want a legal
you're-
question right now.
You're
There's
moving
a motion,
into, we're getting an
point
opinion.
of information, legal is
It
served.
needs to be a question. This is what it is. A point of information is
Well,
a
if you'd
question.
let him speak,
It's not an
Mr. Chairman,
opportunity to speak.
you'll
Go
hear the
ahead.
question, but you keep interrupting.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Councillor.
As I understand law, motions. Someone moves a motion, an amendment's made to that. If the motion is removed, there can't be an amendment, can't be anything on there. The clerk has now just stated, as I understand it. So I'd like to have a legal question. If the clerk's not able, if we have to refer this back to get a legal opinion, we'll do that. A motion's brought forward, amendment's there. The mover's been removed. So I'd like to know what the heck's going on here.
Well, Councillor Munch, if I may
Excuse
add,
me, no, you may.
it was
you
my
may.
question, Mr. Chairman.
I know, and he's asking a question,
was
which
my-
I am,
I want
I
to
understand that, and the
help
point of
situation.
information takes precedence.
I want to-
Excuse me, sir.
No,
I
we're-
am in the process of answering to the best of my ability, Councillor Munch's question. The clerk has made it clear that the procedural bylaw is silent on this eventuality.
No, it is not.
That's
It's not silent.
That is.
He read you the rule. It says at
ex-
any time before you
Excuse
vote
me,
on the
excuse
motion,
me,
it can be
excuse me,
withdrawn.
excuse me. Point of order,
The
Councillor
chair is
Shepherd.
speaking. I would appreciate if you had enough courtesy and respect to allow him to finish his talking points. Thank you.
Thank you. I agree. Mr. Clerk has stated that the procedural bylaw is silent on this particular eventuality, but remaining silent requires the chair to make a ruling, which I have not had the opportunity yet to do because we've had a number of procedural other things happening in the meantime. I will grant the my ruling will be that we will allow this motion to be withdrawn because of the fact that it's silent on this particular eventuality. We have now talked about this now for quite some time, but if the mover of the motion has indicated that they would like to have the motion withdrawn, we can withdraw the motion. So the motion is withdrawn. Thank you very much for your help, Mr. Clerk. I appreciate your input. So it is now 12:10. The motion is withdrawn, Councillor.
With respect, Mr. Chair, I never got a chance. I've been
No,
recognized.
I realize that, Councillor, but
Never get a chance to
unfortunately,
speak.
the motion has been withdrawn. So at this point in time, it's 10 minutes after 12. Excuse me, Councillor. At this point in time, it's 10 minutes after 12. I suggest that we take a recess for lunch until 10 minutes, say 1:15. Okay, is everybody okay with that? Okay, thank you very much. We will be reconvene at 1:15.